if 2022 was proof of anything, it's that physical media is thriving. And the proof is in the pudding with this. So I'm going to show you my favorite releases of 2022. Now, mind you, I'm a horror buff, so all of these are within the genre, but let's get into this. 2022 was a radical year for physical media, right? There were tons of releases across all kinds of great companies. We had some old-time boutique labels releasing quality. We had new labels pop on the scene and just destroy it with their new releases. We had unexpected big titles hit boutique labels. And there was so much going on this year that I kind of sat back and I was like, man, I really didn't take the time to appreciate any of the newness. It's really hard when it's flying at you at 100 miles an hour and Instagram is flooded with stuff and it's just kind of like a sensory overload. So I wanted to take some time and sit down and really figure out what were the releases that mean a lot to me, both on a quality standpoint, bonus features, or just a pure joy value that I got out of opening the package that they were in. Now, mind you, these are my favorite releases. Yours are going to be different, probably. But tell me down below, which ones are your favorite? What was your number one release this year? Because I can't seem to pick. So all of these are number one. In my mind, at least, right? And there are a couple great companies in here that I would love nothing more than for you all to go support. I'm sure you all do anyway. But these companies are pumping out quality work. And they're doing it rapidly. And this year is going to be no exception. 2023 is going to be huge for physical media if these companies keep doing what they're doing. So they're all number one in my mind. There's really no order to any of this. I'm just going to jump right into it. So if you were to sit back and analyze all of the major boutique labels that have been pumping out titles over the last couple of years, one that's going to jump to the forefront from a quality perspective, from a presentation perspective, to an overall passion for what they're releasing and passion for putting out these incredible titles. And there's actually a few of them over to my left here. That's going to be Second Sight Films from the UK. And I actually have two of their releases on my favorites of the year list. One of them we have been waiting for so long. If you're like me and you grew up Blockbuster, perusing the shelves, me and my buddy Tom, my best friend that I've had since I was, I don't know, single digits, rented this movie so many times, and to finally pick this up in 4K nonetheless with this presentation is incredible. So first up on my list is none other than Dog Soldiers. Man, look at that artwork right there. And this is a release courtesy of Second Sight Films. There was also a Screen Factory release of this, also in 4K, but both are the same as far as the transfer goes. The transfer is excellent, especially considering how bad the source material is, how bad the original negative is. But when it came down to deciding which one I was going to put my money into, it was Second Sight Films all the way. And this release is packed. I'm sure you all have seen plenty of unboxing of these. I'm not going to dive into it, but there's a full book in here, art cards, as well as a 4K and a Blu-ray in here. This release right here and the next one, pretty much all of what Second Sight Films puts out, are the reason that I love collecting physical media. Arrow Video does the same thing with these hard box sets. They're all kind of here behind me. These releases are incredible, and to see Neil Marshall's Dog Soldiers finally get the treatment that it deserves, it makes me feel good inside. And the first thing I did was text my buddy Tom, and I'm like, dude, remember all the nights that we stood up watching this movie? It's finally out, and it looks fantastic. This isn't your run-of-the-mill studio restoration. Full color changes in here. It just looks fantastic. There's a great grain structure still involved. The special features are awesome to kind of dive into this. This is one of the Neil Marshall films that I feel like kind of gets forgotten about, and it's mainly because this film has kind of been left behind a little bit, right? The original Blu-ray transfer was awful if you can get your hands on it. This release is one of my favorites in the collection, and I just keep looking at this artwork like, god damn, it looks so good. And this is one of the reasons Second Sight just keeps knocking it out of the park. So my first, they're all number one to me, but the first one I'm showing off is Dog Soldiers on 4K from Second Sight Films. And another Second Sight release that to me was shocking considering how, I guess, new this film is. And this film here got a brand new 4K transfer, which is shocking considering there's a good 4K release of it, and it's a standard. It's a simple release, but to see this film get the treatment that it has from Second Sight was amazing. And of course, I'm talking about Robert Eggers' The Witch. Man, again, Second Sight with that artwork. Look at that. Whoo! And look how thick this is. I mean, this thing is basically a hardback book here. But the thing that's really cool about this is the only 4K transfer on the market of The Witch that's actually supervised and approved by Robert Eggers, the director. And not only that, it's a minute change. If you watch the studio 4K release and you watch this, you're going to notice sort of very little changes, a little bit of contrast changes, a tiny little bit of color changes. It's not the biggest switch in the world, and especially not to justify if you already have the 4K to pick up the other, but as someone who just loves and enjoys the passion of film, I want the version that the director says is the most true to his vision, and that's this release here from Second Sight. And of course you have this deluxe treatment. There is a huge book in here, and if you've seen The Witch, you know how dense this movie is with lore and symbolism, and there's so much, and it's got this huge hardbound book in here. I mean, this thing is gigantic. It's full of essays and write-ups, and I mean, it's such an awesome treatment from Second Sight Films here. And the film itself, I don't have to tell you, is incredible. So when I'm sitting back and I'm thinking like, man, what releases really shocked me this year, really put me into like a state of excitement and proof that boutique labels are just crushing what studios are doing, The Witch is a pure example of that. Now on to a much lower key release that I saw a lot of people get. Not a ton of people talked about, but the release deserves more attention, and that is the Grindhouse release of 1977's Death Game. This is directed by Peter Traynor. There's art there. And here's a really cool thing about this. If you're not familiar with Death Game, it would seem very familiar to you upon a first watch, because Eli Roth actually remade this not too long ago in a film with Keanu Reeves called Knock Knock. And Roth has been very vocal about how influential this film is to his filmography, to his life, what this film means to him. And this is a film that has never gotten an HD release ever. This is the first time this is being presented in HD, and this is a fantastic Blu-ray release from Grindhouse Releasing. I mean, this thing, it's a 4K transfer, scaled down to 1080p for the Blu-ray. But honestly, a film like this, these cult films, I'm not the biggest fan of putting them out in 4K, mainly because there's a look and a style to these that they should retain. And this is just the perfect release for a film of this caliber. And I know after this came out, it went and kind of did a little bit of cinema tours and stuff. And it was just awesome to see this film getting the attention it deserves. And this is packed with new interviews and all kinds of like archival insights into a film that not many people know about. And if you dive into it, this film is it's fucking depraved, man. This movie is absolutely insane. If you've seen Knock Knock, you know what you're in for. But to be honest, Eli Roth is, well, I love Knock Knock. I think it's a faithful adaptation of Death Game. I think Death Game just goes further. It just does more with it. And there's something about the 70s aesthetic that just makes the impact of this film so much more. It's sort of like watching The Last House on the Left remake and comparing it to the original. It's just, you can't do that. And I'm super happy that Death Game not only was finally released and that Grindhouse gave it the release that it did. This is an awesome movie. Make sure you check it out. A great release from Grindhouse Releasing. Death Game. Man, look at Grindhouse hitting my favorite releases of the year. Killing it. So one thing we're seeing a little bit, and I think we're going to see more in the coming years, are more studios putting boutique kind of style into their releases, because they're seeing boutique labels sell so well and the feedback so good that some studios are really trying to channel that and put out releases that can go up against a boutique label putting passion into the release and stuff. And one studio that really did that was Sony Pictures, and that was with their 4K release of Fright Night. Man, look at that. The J card had the title on it. I love that the slipcover does not have the title on it, but man, look at that steelbook. Look at that. This release is the closest thing a major studio has done getting to a boutique style release. And this is not only an awesome 4K transfer, but this is a 3-disc set. And when you crack this open, you have multiple discs in here. OCD is killing me. You have the 4K, you have a Blu-ray with bonus features, and then you have a standalone bonus features disc, because this thing is loaded. I mean, absolutely loaded to the gills. And it was really cool for Sony to give this treatment to Fright Night. Of course, we saw a lot of films get upgraded to 4K this year. You had Poltergeist, you had The Lost Boys, and the 4K transfers are excellent, but they're as simple as releases as they come, if my grammar makes any sense there. Of all the studio horror releases to hit shelves this year, Sony crushed it with Fright Night. The steelbook is incredible. I am not typically a steelbook collector. I have a very small stack of steelbooks, and I had to jump on this. I don't know if there's going to be a slipped standard version of this coming anytime soon, but I hope not, because I'm all for this just being all it ever is. And I'm also shocked that a studio release hit my favorites this year. That's rare. That doesn't happen all too often when I kick back at the end of the year. But Fright Night on 4K, this steelbook is killer. If you haven't gotten your hands on this yet, grab it soon. If I had things my way, I would have every single Argento film released by a boutique label. And the proof is in the pudding with them, because there are 2 awesome Argento releases by 2 different labels in this pile. But one of my favorites that kind of came out of nowhere, really wasn't expecting this to drop, but man, what a release this was, is Tenebrae. Dario Argento's Tenebrae. Look at that art. Ready for this? Boom. And I'm sure you guys have seen plenty of unboxings of this, but it's a nice hard box release from Synapse Films. And this film looks incredible, man. The 4K transfer for this is miraculous. There's awesome bonus features in here. You get a little booklet as well as a poster. And then to just have this full presentation is fantastic, right? And of course, shipping, I think I got this from Amazon, and they just time and time again just love to kind of throw my box over my fence and conveniently onto the hardest part of my yard, which is this 2-foot wide block of concrete. You know, they love to do that. But this release is incredible. They also put out Phenomena this year in the same style, another Dario Argento release, and that was kind of in the running for my favorite. That also looked incredible, it sounded incredible, but Tenebrae is my second favorite Argento film outside of Suspiria, and my third actually being his rendering of The Phantom of the Opera. But this is such a cool release. I'm really happy that Synapse is putting out this style of releases, and it's so awesome to see this artwork and this film get this treatment. If you have never seen Tenebrae and you're sort of on the fence about diving into Italian giallo films, watch this, man. So a really funny story about this is when I was younger, arrowinthehead.com, which was a huge horror news site at the time, would actually do these kill of the day videos, and they were these little wave files that you can go on a website and watch. And the infamous arm chop off in this, where the blood splatters the white wall. I mean, it's a beautiful death. It's shot so well. The colors are so vibrant. But every single time that scene comes and it's closer to the end of this film, it just gives me goosebumps. Because I remember as a kid, not really as a kid, but being younger and watching that before really diving into these types of films and being so infatuated with the effects that went behind that and the style and the look in the camera and, you know, all that kind of technical stuff that got me into where I am now. This film is incredible. Tenebrae is incredible. This release is fantastic. I'm going on and on about this, but one of my favorites this year was Tenebrae from Synapse Films. So next up is a release that many of us just got within the last month or so, and it was an Argento film that we've all been hoping and waiting was finally going to get put out. We were hoping that it would get pretty much the treatment it deserves, and Severin came in just completely clutch with this release. And this was a Black Friday exclusive, so you only had about 24 hours to get in your order for this. and it's awesome. It's the third film in the Animal trilogy, and that is Four Flies on Grey Velvet. And hands down, this is the best art of the year. It's creepy as hell. Look at that. This is one of my favorite 4K releases of the year, mainly because only with boutique labels where you get this kind of care on films that are completely forgotten about. And Four Flies on Grey Velvet has pretty much been forgotten about. I saw this once on some off-brand streaming site, some weird like horror one that I downloaded on my TV, and this was one of the few Argento films I hadn't seen at the time, and it's as good as 90% of his films, which are fantastic. But this treatment from Severin, just it's so good down to the art. You have a matte packaging here, but you have gloss on the eyes as well as in the camera lens here on the fly. The love and the care put into this release is absolutely fantastic. And this release, is loaded with interviews and all kinds of new insights on this film. And this is the kind of stuff that I point to when people are like, what do you mean people still buy movies? Yeah, this film is now preserved. And not only is it preserved in this fantastic release, but also in 4K in a digital archive where, the elements and the air and all kinds of stuff cannot destroy the film. And Severin does such a good job with their 4K releases. The grain structure is still intact really well. All the colors pop. The audio is fantastic. This is just overall an awesome release from Severin Films. And honestly, probably one of the underground, kind of like unexpected releases of the year. I wasn't expecting this. Many people who picked this up wasn't expecting this. This is just one of those releases that completely took me by storm, and I've become completely infatuated with this release. I dove into this absolutely as quickly as I could. If you haven't seen Four Flies on Grey Velvet, or you haven't seen the other two films in the Animal trilogy, being The Cat O' Nine Tails, and of course the first, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, give them a watch and round it out with this release, especially if you have a 4K setup, man. This looks so good. So without a doubt, we are all very familiar with the level of quality that Vinegar Syndrome puts out. And that is why the final three on my list are all Vinegar Syndrome, because they've really crushed it this year and brought forth big titles, especially in a partnership with MGM, and did it with quality and did it with care and precision. And one of the releases that I kind of freaked out about, and I was really happy to find this because I was really hesitant on this at first, and I don't really know why. When this dropped during the halfway to Black Friday sale, I was actually getting 4 new tires on my car and all new brakes. And it was like tons of money just for me to trade in the car eventually. But the release that I'm talking about is their release of Thriller, A Cruel Picture. Check that out. This box set. Don't mind the price tag down there. I actually bought this from a retail store in New York. But this Christina Lindbergh revenge story is just on a whole nother level of Eurosleaze craziness. If you don't know anything about this film, it's basically about this young girl played by Christina Lindbergh who gets drugged and into forced prostitution, and then after losing her eye due to kind of lashing out towards the man responsible for all of this, goes on this crazy revenge streak, and she's actually sneaking out all the time. She's learning how to shoot guns, she's learning how to drive cars, and she exacts revenge on every single person who is involved in this weird prostitution ring that she became a part of. And this was actually banned by the Swedish censor board. And this is a really cool release I'll show you. So there's actually 2 films in here, both 4Ks. The first one being They Call Her One Eye. And this is the standard release that we've had all along. This is the censored release. And it was really cool that Vinegar Syndrome took the time to not just put this on Blu-ray, not put this on DVD, but to release it in 4K. And I'll tell you why in a second, right? So this is the censored cut of it all, and it's great. This film, all in all, is absolutely fantastic. So it was completely reconstructed from the original. I mean, some pretty substantial changes here, but if you want to see the full uncensored film, that's actually going to be Thriller. Check that out, man. Check out that art in the back there. And while there were a lot of changes in between the two cuts of the film, you can argue that what has been added into this release of Thriller is a little unnecessary, maybe a little over the top, because one of the big changes is the graphic sex that was brought back into this release. And I mean simulated pornographic style sex in this film. It goes there, man. It really goes there. If you've seen this, you know what I'm talking about. But this is such an awesome release from Vinegar Syndrome. Seeing all the slow motion gunshots in this movie. I mean, 3/4 of the last act of this movie is in slow motion. And it looks so good. The audio quality is fantastic. The grain structure is still intact. This movie looks better than it will ever look again. This has a fantastic new making of documentary on it, with interviews with Christina Lindbergh and all kinds of other people involved in it. I love this movie simply for the trash that it is. I know a lot of people would argue that there's really nothing valuable in here, but slow motion shootouts. I'm here for that. I'm also here for Eurosleeves all the way, and Vinegar Syndrome putting this level of care, not just to do a 4K of the original uncensored cut, but to also do a 4K of the reconstructed cut that they did after the Swedish censor board banned it. Man, that's just unbeatable. And listen, this pink color on here, I know it looks orange in the camera. I love picking up this box and just enjoying it, man. I know that sounds weird to all y'all, but it's probably fine. This is one of those releases that reminds me of why I love physical media and why I love revisiting these films that otherwise would get lost and nobody would talk about anymore. So on to my two final films on my favorite releases of the year list. And I have to shout this out, right? This film here was released by one of Vinegar Syndrome's partner labels, Gunpowder and Sky. And this is a movie from 2018 that was really under the radar and has luckily picked up steam because it's batshit crazy. And I hear this complaint all the time with films, and I kind of feel the same way sometimes, where they just don't go far enough, right? The concept is there, the ability to really push it there is there. They just never do it. They tend to stay here. They could be here, right? And it sort of messes with the quality a little bit. I know there's plenty of times I'm in a theater watching a movie and I'm thinking, this could have gone there, and it just never does. And this film does, and it got an awesome 4K treatment from Gunpowder and Sky. And that is Summer of '84. I mean, look at that. Come on. That's the back. And that's the slipcover, as Gunpowder and Sky sometimes does. That's the hard box. And then you have posters as either side of the slip. And this is a really cool release for a couple of reasons. A, this is a small film that deserves every bit of attention it gets. So to see it get this kind of a treatment, again, is fantastic. It looks great in 4K. Just really happy to see these films go wider and really allow people to enjoy them in a different format, because I think I originally saw this on streaming. I forget what channel I streamed on, but I saw this on streaming somehow, fell in love with it. The Blu-ray was good, but there was really nothing to it. And to see this get this kind of a treatment is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't seen Summer of '84, check this out as soon as you can, because the third act of this movie is fucking bonkers, man. This goes far beyond where you're expecting it to. And every single time you're like, is this film going to do that? It does. And that's that, man. 2022 is over. It is gone. When you're watching this, it is 2023. And there's already been a slew of new physical media releases that we're all waiting for. If you're like me, you already have a bunch of pre-orders placed. You're on every single news Instagram waiting for the newest releases. I know I just mentioned the new Vinegar Syndrome releases, their new partner label releases. There is so much to look forward to this year. And honestly, as a physical media collector, as a horror fan, as a fan of movies in general, I really hate to hear people think that physical media is dying. I mean, you go into Best Buy and some have no sections. What sections some do have are very little. Walmart is condensing. And It's really sad to see, and honestly, I hate to see it, but honestly, at this point, I don't want to support those retailers. I would rather support the boutique labels by ordering directly from them, tagging them on Instagram, doing everything I can, or doing everything that you all can as collectors and as lovers of what we do. I mean, this is a passion of mine. This is a huge passion of yours. And we are the supporters of all of this. I mean, all the releases that I just showed you have months, if not years, behind them, gathering the special features, doing the transfers, making sure that the tiniest details are nailed down. And that's what's so important to people like me. And why this isn't just a collection, it's like a preservation. It's an appreciation, because to think that there are people out there that love this more than I do, or love this more than you do, and they're putting that work into this, man, I'm just so appreciative of what they do, and I'm so appreciative of every single boutique label and the effort that they're putting into these releases. And seeing where it's going to go moving forward, I can't wait. I mean, I'm so excited for all the films that I've never seen getting 4K transfers, for all the movies I've never seen getting treated like gold, or the movies that I love. I'm here for everything. Give me all of it. Let's continue supporting physical media together. Whether your knowledge is high or your knowledge is low, let's continue telling people to get vocal and to come on the YouTube and to post on Instagram, and to just show what they're passionate about, right? It doesn't matter if you think you don't sound smart when you talk about it, or if you don't really know too much about something, just talk about it. Just be vocal, because in the end, that's what's going to support the continued growth of physical media. Whether it gets to a studio level and they start seeing that, I really doubt it. But in the meantime, we need to make sure that all of these labels know and appreciate how much we love what they do. And we spend good money on this stuff, right? So they know we do by spending the money. But every single time you share something, you're showing it to people who might not know that exists. And you're sharing it to people, and you're introducing things to people that they probably never would have been introduced with otherwise. So from one collector who absolutely loves what I do to all of you, please continue collecting, continue having a passion for what you do. Collect what you like, collect what you love, and please be vocal about it. Because at the end of the day, if we don't talk about this, it's going to go away. And that's why it is important to post, to talk, to share, and to keep the positive community, or to keep the community positive, and to keep things real, and to just support one another. So again, thank you for coming back to the channel. This is the second video. I am honored and blessed to be doing this again. Thank you so much. I can't wait to talk about the massive stack of my favorite releases for 2023.